The throne chamber of High Warlord Kuroth Zen was a monument to excess and fear. Black stone columns, crimson banners soaked in enemy blood, giant tusks of extinct leviathans lining the walls like a promise. This is what happens when you say no. And at the center of it all stood the warlord himself, massive, plated in ceremonial bone armor, a mouthful of jagged teeth permanently twisted into a grin that had nothing to do with joy. Across from him stood a single human, unarmed, calm, wearing a suit, not a uniform, Ambassador Clayton Reece. He was average in height, sharp in posture, with silver at his temples and a diplomatic badge that had been scanned 17 times before being allowed entry. He extended a hand. "On behalf of Earth and her colonies, I accept your proposal for alliance, High Warlord." Kuroth's massive claw closed around Reece's hand with just enough pressure to test bones. "I look forward to unity," the warlord said with a voice like a growl filtered through gravel. Reece's smile never wavered. "Of course." They held the handshake for a beat too long, and then let go. The moment was recorded, broadcast to dozens of outer systems, spun by neutral media as a milestone of diplomacy between Earth and the Varnock ascendancy. Kuroth Zen's advisors were pleased, his generals were amused, and Reece? He returned to his shuttle, nodded once to his pilot, and sent 2 words on a secure channel. "It's time." 2 weeks earlier. "Sir," said Colonel Mays, "you're seriously going to shake his hand?" Clayton Reece sat in the center of a high-orbit war table, sipping black coffee. He scrolled through planetary layouts of Varnock Prime with the precision of a surgeon checking for weak arteries. "Yes," he said, "because he thinks diplomacy is a weakness." Mays frowned. "Isn't it?" Reece looked up. "Only if you forget what's parked behind your smile." They all knew Kuroth's offer was a lie. He had signed 3 alliances in the past decade. He had burned all 3 systems to ash the moment he got their trade routes and fleet manifests. This wasn't about politics. This was about exposure, and Earth had grown tired of pretending it didn't notice the pattern. "I'm authorized?" Reece asked. Mays nodded. "President signed off. Parliament too. Operation Paper Mirror is live. Phase 1 is you." Reece leaned back, cracked his neck. "Then let's go shake hands with a liar." Back in the present, Kuroth Zen watched the human shuttle leave his atmosphere, flanked by 2 of his own gunships. He snorted. "Do they think a handshake saves them?" His advisor, Slektar, clicked his mandibles. "They believe they've won your favor." "Good," Kuroth said. "Begin forward deployment. Their trade gates are open now. Their satellites will go blind in 2 days. I want orbital dominance before they suspect anything." Slektar bowed. "Yes, Warlord." In truth, the invasion timetable was already underway. Varnock stealth ships had been drifting in system shadows for weeks. The humans had invited them in, but in the cold reaches behind Jupiter's shadow, EarthFleet wasn't idle. It was tracking. And on an unmarked server room inside Lunar Command, an AI named DORA passed Varnock positioning data with machine precision. Each cloaked vessel was tagged, each command frequency mirrored, each tactic already simulated and pre-countered. Because the handshake wasn't Earth's acceptance of alliance, it was confirmation of betrayal. Reece sat alone in his debrief room, reading the reports pouring in. Dozens of outer colonies now received false Varnock trade offers, right on schedule. The Varnock supply fleet had gone dark just as their ground bases activated new comm bursts. Their main armada was powering up. Perfect. He tapped his comm. "Phase 2 green. Let's remind them what humans do when cornered." In orbit over Earth, 20 ships decloaked. Not warships. Hulls disguised as cargo vessels, mining rigs and medical fleets. Each one now dropped their facades. And underneath, invasion-class artillery. Across the stars, Earth's so-called merchant ships near Varnock space turned. Engines lit, weapons online, shields pulsed to full, and cloaked carrier pods began launching strike teams into pre-mapped weak points on Varnock colonies. Kuroth Zen received the first transmission from a forward base 20 minutes later. "Human vessels opening fire. We're..." Static, then nothing. He blinked, twice. "How?" Slektar stumbled in. "Warlord, the human alliance, it was..." Kuroth stood, eyes wide. "A setup." Because while the warlord played at deception, the human smiled back and brought the sword behind it. In a forward listening post nestled between 2 broken moons, The last message intercepted by the Varnock fleet before blackout was, "You should have checked our handshake for a trigger." 3 days earlier, Lunar Command. Colonel Mays stood before a wall of redacted mission threads, each one blinking alive. "Phase 2 ready," she said. Commander Brax, EarthFleet's ground director, nodded once. Reece's handshake confirmed the Warlord's intent. Once he pulls troop formations inward, we isolate colonies, slice supply, and neuter jump gates. Mays raised an eyebrow. "And if Kuroth backs off?" Brax gave a thin smile. "He won't. His ego is stronger than his shields." Now, in orbit above Varnock Prime, the Dauntless Fox, a human infiltration carrier, hung silent, its silhouette masked against the planet's blue-white glare. Inside, Reece stood in the command bay, watching the invasion unfold with clinical stillness. Holofeed showed Varnock garrisons in chaos, supply routes flooded with false retreat signals, civilian infrastructure untouched but isolated. He turned to the operator beside him. "Any transmissions from Kuroth?" The operator blinked, scanning. "Only one, sir." Reece nodded. "Let's hear it." Kuroth's voice, once confident and slow, now cracked through static. "Earth, this is a betrayal of diplomatic trust. You will face consequences." Reece raised a brow. "That all?" "You will answer for this. We will rally. We—" Click. Reece ended the feed mid-threat, then calmly said, "Bring me visuals on his inner command bunker." Meanwhile, Kuroth Zen stormed through his underground stronghold. Slektar limped beside him, data chip in one claw. 17 outer colonies have gone dark. 6 have already signaled surrender to EarthFleet. Our worm ships were jammed mid-jump. Kuroth bared his teeth. "They tricked us." "No, Warlord," Slektar whispered. "They studied us." They had, of course. Earth hadn't accepted the alliance to be polite. They had accepted it to monitor every frequency, map every base, and measure every delay in response time. And when Kuroth had welcomed Reece into his inner sanctum, Reece's hidden patch on his diplomatic badge mapped the entire command relay system in 12 seconds. Now, that same relay pulsed with Earth's countersignal. Every override Kuroth once used to command obedience, now echoed back, jammed, mocked, and returned with precision-coded collapse orders. Reece stood at the holotable and gave the signal. "All Varnock communication towers, cut but leave their emergency beacons live. Let them talk to each other. Let them feel alone." The next phase wasn't destruction. It was isolation. Varnock generals tried to rally, only to find their private encryption lines overrun by EarthFleet's behavioral simulators. Entire units were lured into counter-ambushes by voice-cloned commands from their own chain of command. In 20 hours, Earth had retaken what the Varnock ascendancy spent 80 years conquering, and they hadn't even touched their full armada. Kuroth staggered into his war chamber. His throne, once surrounded by fire-breathing defense bots, was dark. The power grid had collapsed 2 hours ago. Now, only emergency backup kept the bunker lit. He activated a private communication. "Call the Earth ambassador. Let's negotiate." On the Dauntless Fox, Reece took the call. He appeared on Kuroth's flickering holotable, standing with arms crossed, not in armor or command robes, but in that same suit from the handshake. Kuroth growled, "You broke the alliance." Reece blinked. "You offered a fake one." Kuroth leaned in, jaw clenched. "You humans. You smile while lying." Reece's reply was calm. We smile while calculating. He stepped forward, face now clear in the projection. "See, you thought Earth didn't know your game, but you played it loud. Your betrayal had rhythm." He lifted a small device, a neural print reader. "This scanned your entire relay field during our handshake." Kuroth's eyes widened. "You were baiting me from the beginning." Reece smiled, cold and complete. "Not baiting, answering." And with that, Reece nodded to his ops team. "Begin Phase 3. Send in the truth." Across Varnock-controlled space, EarthFleet began broadcasting intercepted logs, treaties Kuroth had violated, testimonies from former allies he'd burned. Not to military targets, to civilians, to former colonies, to neutral systems. And as the lies cracked open, alliances once forged in fear began to fall. One colony leader, a feline alien named Vera, broadcasted live, "We followed the Warlord because no one else dared stand. Now Earth does. We will not fight humans, we will fight with them. In less than 48 hours, Kuroth Zen's empire collapsed from the inside, and the man who shook hands with a human would spend the rest of his days listening to recordings of that handshake playing on loop in every war museum from Earth to Zura 9. The throne of Varnock Prime was empty now. The banners had fallen, the perimeter guns were silent, and deep beneath the planet's surface, High Warlord Kuroth Zen, once conqueror of 9 systems, now sat alone in a command chair designed for triumph, watching his empire dissolve in real time. His voice rasped across a cracked comlink. Slektar, report. Static. Then, civilian factions have taken the southern corridors. Former colonies refuse to rejoin. And, Warlord, we intercepted human aid drops landing in places we haven't even lost yet. Kuroth gritted his teeth. They're planning post-victory logistics during the war. Slektar paused. Sir, I believe, for them, this was the post-victory phase. Lunar Command, 6 days earlier. Inside EarthFleet's high-orbit tactical lab, Commander Reece reviewed holographic models, hundreds of Varnock troop placements, supply lines, weak points, propaganda centers. A junior strategist asked, should we prepare for drawn-out planetary engagement? Reece didn't even look up. No need. The room turned. He tapped the side of a simulated communication tower. They'll fall before they know they're falling. We don't need to fight their empire. The hologram zoomed in to show broadcast beacons and psychological warfare pods. We just need to let everyone else stop obeying it. Now, in the present, across Varnock-controlled territories, Earth's infiltration teams activated the final phase. They didn't storm palaces. They turned the lights off. In every stronghold, critical systems rebooted to EarthFleet overlays. Weapons platforms now played live testimonies of survivors of the Ascendancy's betrayals. On every Varnock world, Earth's GhostNet displayed just 3 lines. The Warlord lied. You followed out of fear. Now lead yourselves. The collapse wasn't loud. It was surgical. Some governors resisted, but they were locked out of their own bunkers when EarthFleet recoded their entrance systems 3 days earlier. Others attempted to flee, only to find Earth's decoy freighters parked across major exit routes. One even hailed Earth for mercy. The reply, we're not here to destroy you. We're here to remove what made you destroy yourselves. Back in Kuroth Zen's bunker, the Warlord stood, ripping off the ceremonial bone armor piece by piece, each clang louder than the last. He reached for his last emergency weapon, an encoded strike beacon hidden under his throne. A single push would summon a fail-safe fleet of privateers, off-the-books killers, held in reserve. He pressed it. Nothing. Far above, in the dauntless Fox, Reece watched the activation attempt from his private feed. Was that it? One operator asked. Reece nodded. We cracked that beacon signal pattern during our handshake. It now pings a void drone in deep orbit. Should we tell him? Reece took a sip of coffee. Number, let him enjoy the silence. Meanwhile, in orbit of 2 key Varnock sectors, EarthFleet shuttles dropped boxes, not bombs. Inside them, medical kits, food processors, open-source communication nodes, solar rechargers, messages in dozens of dialects. This is not occupation, this is liberation by preparation. The boxes carried Earth's emblem, and a line repeated on every lid. We didn't conquer you, we just made it safe to say no. The final spark wasn't Earth's doing, it came from within. On Varnock-controlled Kunera Prime, a mother whose son had been conscripted to serve in Kuroth's navy hacked into a planetary comm line. Her broadcast went system-wide. Tear-stained, she said, I asked the Warlord for my son's return. He sent back ashes. I asked the humans. They sent food, heat, and protection. She looked into the camera. So I don't care if Earth smiles when it fights. They smiled at me, and they meant it. By the next morning, Kuroth's own officers had abandoned him. Slektar left a final message. You fought to own. They fought to prove no one should. I choose them. When Reece finally set foot in the Varnock throne chamber, it was quiet. Dust floated in the stale air. He walked slowly, gloves on, past shattered murals and flickering relics. One soldier behind him muttered, Hard to believe this place ran half a quadrant. Reece said nothing. He approached the throne, bent slightly, and picked up the beacon Kuroth tried to use, then turned to his officer and said, This is what happens when you think we came unarmed. Outside, EarthFleet banners didn't fly. They didn't need to, because every screen now displayed one final message from Reece. We smiled because the plan was already working. We smiled because we knew, and we're still smiling. Kuroth Zen was no longer a warlord. He was a fugitive, abandoned by his fleets, hunted by his former allies, stripped of his command codes, armor, and title. He fled through the lower levels of Varnock Prime disguised in mercenary garb, face half-covered, dragging a plasma-scorched leg behind him as mobs roared through the streets. What had once been his capital was now a roaring furnace of truth. The humans hadn't raised a flag over it. They didn't have to. EarthFleet had pulled back the moment the last resistance fell. No celebrations, no declaration of rule, no permanent presence, just crates of aid, medics, and a single broadcast file uploaded into every planetary node. You are free. What happens next is yours to decide. We'll be listening, not leading. And the galaxy noticed. In the neutral system of Reltara, hundreds of species gathered in an open comm hall. They had once feared the Varnock ascendancy. Now, they debated among themselves what a post-ascendancy alliance could look like. It wasn't the Council. It wasn't Earth's government either. It was everyone else, finally realizing that they didn't need a conqueror to coordinate. Earth didn't send diplomats to that meeting. They sent a technical team to install translator nodes, and a single message signed by Commander Reece. We're not here to rule you. We're here to prove you never needed to be ruled at all. Meanwhile, on a backwater moon called Shah Vex, Kuroth was caught, not by human soldiers, by a coalition of his own former sub-commanders, each one once loyal, now united in rage and humiliation. They didn't kill him. They locked him inside one of his own propaganda chambers, looping the trial footage Earth had exposed, the betrayal logs, and one quiet phrase from Reece during his final broadcast. Deception is easy. Truth? That's harder. That's why we weaponized it. Lunar Command, Debrief Room 3. Reece sat before a projection wall glowing with images from across former Varnock space. Small communities rebuilding, free elections beginning, children no longer training with rifles but learning in open-air schools. A young communications officer entered. Sir, the Council of Jexar has officially requested not aid, but templates. They want Earth's help building local governance systems. Reece looked up. Did we offer to lead them? No, sir. We just sent the open-source models. Reece nodded. That's enough. The room was quiet for a moment. Then the officer asked, Sir, why didn't we just take it? The territory? The victory? Reece gave a tired half-smile. Because that's not why we shook hands. On an independent relay station 2 jumps from Velkari space, a schoolroom was watching an archived transmission of the now famous handshake war. The teacher paused the footage. A young alien student, wide-eyed and hesitant, raised one hand. Why do humans always smile? They asked. The room was silent for a beat. Then the teacher, an old Trellari ambassador's daughter, answered, because humans figured out something the rest of us forgot. She turned to the screen where Reece and Kuroth's handshake was frozen mid-frame. They smile, when they already know the ending. That smile became a symbol across hundreds of independent systems. No anthem, no flag, just a single poster that appeared across refugee corridors, city hubs, and spaceport terminals. A human hand extended, not in threat, not in conquest, just calmly offered forward. Beneath it, 5 simple words. We don't build empires, we end them. Back on Earth, Commander Reece submitted his retirement request. Not because he was tired, because he was done. Done proving Earth could win a war. He wanted to start proving Earth didn't need to fight one again. As he walked out of Lunar Command for the last time, a reporter stopped him. Commander, final thoughts on the operation? Reece turned, hands in his pockets. He didn't give a speech. He just said, they offered lies with a grin, so we answered with truth, and smiled harder. The chamber was quiet. The once mighty Kuroth Zen sat on the cold floor of his former stronghold, wrapped not in armor, but a tattered grey cloak. Around him, the looping broadcast continued playing on cracked monitors, his own voice overlaid with Reece's, spliced into contradiction. You will know strength, said the Warlord on tape. You will never fear again, said the Warlord again. You never needed to fear us at all, came Reece's calm reply. The loop repeated, again and again. until even Kuroth stopped trying to shut his ears. He was never formally tried, never executed, never exiled. He was left, as a symbol, as a warning. The warlord who offered a false hand, only to be broken by one that smiled back. Elsewhere, the galaxy didn't pause to celebrate, it simply moved forward. On Velkar's outer colonies, banners once marked with Varnock insignia were quietly replaced with local symbols. On Kreth-Yar, a mining world formerly under brutal taxation, new leadership held open elections using Earth's translated civic templates. And on the old Council channel, now reclaimed by neutral broadcasters, a live feed played, former Varnock systems declaring independence, not with rebellion, but with structure. Earth didn't oversee it. They didn't even monitor it closely. They just sent updates, open access tools, and, where asked, mentors. No troops, no threats, just assistance. Because Reece's war had never been about military supremacy. It had been about something far more dangerous to a tyrant: empowerment. Back on Earth, Reece settled into civilian life in the quiet hills of Nova Scotia. He had no statues, no memoir, but sometimes strangers still recognized him. A mechanic once asked, "Hey, you're that handshake guy, right?" Reece had smiled and said, "Depends which handshake you mean." Years later, a new accord was ratified. No empire, no council, just a rotating seat, open participation, and full transparency. At the center of the new charter was a short quote, unattributed, known by everyone. "We smile because we know the plan works. We act because someone has to. And we don't rule because no one should." Kuroth's name faded from broadcasts, from reports, from memory. But one figure remained burned into galactic culture, the smiling human in a simple suit, the man who turned a handshake into a reckoning. Final broadcast, EarthFleet archives, Echo Beacon 001. The screen flickers to life. Reece sits alone. No rank displayed, no title beneath his name, just a timestamp. He looks into the feed, voice measured. "You thought we'd fall for the fake alliance. You thought we'd play nice until you stabbed us. But we weren't playing." He pauses, then smiles. "We just wanted you to reveal yourself. You did. And now, so has the galaxy." He stands up, walks away from the chair, and the camera lingers for 3 seconds before fading to black. Above 100 worlds, across stations, moons, and nomad enclaves, that clip plays at least once a year. Not as propaganda, as a reminder of what happens when humans are underestimated, of what happens when peace is a performance, of what happens when someone smiles, not out of naivety, but because they've already mapped the ending. Because Earth didn't win by force. Earth won by never playing fair with liars. And as the stars settled into a new era, carved not by warships, but by decisions, one simple truth echoed through every open channel. You always had a choice. We just reminded you how to use it.